All right, we're going to be talking to David Fremont of Catching the Munchies. It's Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher, Book 1. Uh, Before we get into this, I'm just going to say that my son loves the book. He's 4 years old, so it's definitely a book for young kids. So I've been looking forward to doing this interview with David. So let's not waste any more time and let's bring him on in.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? How's it going with you?
Good. Just in the studio inking away today, and looking forward to chatting with you.
Oh, cool. So before we start talking about the book, I'd like to kind of ask people that I talk to in an interview how they got into comics. If they remember maybe the first one that they read, or if they remember the one that kind of caught their interest and made them want to read more.
Well, I used to read a lot of newspaper comics. I loved the fun, the funnies in the newspaper, on Sunday, and well, actually every day I would just pull out the comics. And I also watched a lot of cartoons. This was back in the 70s, so cartoons were on Saturday morning. So I loved watching cartoons, and I liked to draw too, but I didn't really feel like I was necessarily a good drawer. My brothers and his friend were like really good drawers, and I was just like, but I was always kind of hacking away at it, and I like to try and draw cartoon characters. So I would practice drawing like cartoon eyes, overlapping eyes, that whole thing. I really loved reading the Peanuts comics. So they had the strip, but they also had these little comic books, and my mom would get me the Peanuts comics and stuff. And I remember having like a Snoopy themed birthday, I think, when I was in kindergarten. So that was like one of the strips that I read, and I just thought it was kind of cool that somebody could have like a job. When I started realizing this is somebody's job, they actually they draw these comics and write these comics for a living, so I'm like, that's what I want to do,
Yeah.
So I just just drew all the time, and I started making these comics. A lot of times my comics were kind of based on movies I saw, so I would almost like do like a version of the movie that I saw. Like if I saw Poseidon Adventure, or some kind of like Jaws or something like that. I remember my cousin drew this amazing, when I got a little bit older, my cousin drew this amazing comic. It was a shark comic, and it was just like Jaws, and I was just like, oh my God. And I was obsessed with drawing comics after that, but like comic stories, not necessarily like strips, but like, continuing adventures where, guys get picked off one by one. it's always the same setup. It was either a shark or a giant eel, or some kind of creature, or some kind of disaster, and there was always like one guy left at the end. And he always had a beard. He always had a beard, Chad. So you have a beard, so that'll make you happy, right?
So this book is your first, I guess we'll call it a graphic novel or children's book. You do film cartoons, is that correct?
I worked for years in animation. I lived in San Francisco and worked at a animation studio called Colossal Pictures. And so they did a lot of stuff for MTV and commercials, and I actually painted animation cells, and then I started doing like design work for them. So learning more about animation and storyboarding, and as I was doing that, I was also working as a freelance illustrator for magazines, and doing editorial illustrations and rock posters and things like that. So it's kind of always in the drawing world, in the cartoon world, in a sense. And I was also doing a comic strip for a magazine called Mondo 2000. It was like a monthly. monthly magazine, and I had a little strip called Spider Eggs in that, and I was and at the same time I was also doing comics for Last Gasp, comics and stories, sort of ongoing this ongoing comic saga I was doing for them. So I was kind of doing a lot of those things at the same time, working animation, doing comics, and doing editorial illustration. So I was kind of jumping around, trying to do them all, of course, from my job at Colossal and, after work. And so I was kind of juggling a lot of those things at the same time.
So what inspired you to, finally write a, children's book and do the, illustrations and all that for it?
Well, it kind of came about in a period, actually, after I moved to Los Angeles, after a lot of the animation companies closed and the .com, I did a lot of .com cartoons and stuff, web cartoons. After that kind of stuff all kind of crashed, we moved to Los Angeles because I'm like, well, all the animation's here, so I actually did pitched a cartoon show called Kung Fu Spy Troll to Mary Harrington at Nickelodeon, and she really liked it, and we did a deal for that, and went into production on a pilot, and that was super exciting because I always wanted to have my own cartoon. Unfortunately, it did not go to series, as those things happen. So and it took about 6 months to make. So after I made that, and we got the news that it wasn't going to series, I was just like, I was like, well, I need to keep working. So, but I also had a young daughter who was, needed taking care of. So I was like, well, I was kind of burnt out too. So I just wanted to do I just wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. And then I thought, maybe I can just work on some book ideas, because I always wanted to do children's books. So I kind of cranked it out. It seemed like the story I had this idea where there was a what if, these creatures from outer space found like a fast food wrapper, and then they ate it, or they did something where it made them want more, and then they came to Earth and wanted to consume all of the fast food. But then I changed it. I think it was at the beach, and I changed the idea because I saw a kid eating fast food on the beach, and I was like, well, what if they're sea monsters and they come out? And I always liked that idea of sea monsters and creatures that lived in the water. So so I kind of changed it to that. But I really sketched the whole thing out, I think, while I was taking care of my daughter in between naps and all, and Dora the Explorer. I'd be like typing away. Not that I wasn't, attending to her too. We were going to the park and stuff, but I always had my drawing pad with me, so I would sketch things out. So a lot of book ideas actually came about during that period of time. I actually wrote like a few books. I actually wrote a coming of age novel, and like these other books. So Catch the Munchies was the first one, but then there's these other ones that haven't been published, but they're still in my, that are finished. But Catch the Munchies was the first one, and also actually I want to add that we had somebody renting our room who was a book illustrator named James Primos, and he was always like, "You got to do books, so, and he encouraged me to just to do it, because I saw all the books he was doing. He was doing Johnny Mutton and all these great books, and so he inspired me to jump into the trying to get it. And it almost actually I almost did get it published through him, through a publisher that he knew, but they read the book, and actually the book was didn't have a backstory. So the book now has a backstory where you find out how Carlton Crumple becomes a creature catcher. Well, actually, the original book just started right when the French fry drops in the water, and I had shown it to a publisher, and they're like, we love the idea, but we want to know more about the characters. So then I went back and created this whole like, why is he doing what he's doing?
Yeah.
Kind of based it on my childhood of watching monster movies and my older brother scaring me, and typical stuff with witches and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I've kind of put a lot of that.
Did he run around the house with laundry on his like underwear on his head?
I don't know if he did that, but there was definitely Well, I remember one time he was like scratching on the wall. He's gonna kill me. He's just scratching on the wall. He's a nice guy. Don't give me. I mean, he just did typical older brother stuff, So he was scratching on the wall one night while we were going to sleep, and I was like, "What's that noise?" He's like, "Oh, those are just the rats trying to claw into the room." I was like, "No," things like that.
Oh, I know. I have an older brother, so I'm well aware with what they can do.
I think it's part of their contract when they're born, or something. And you will scare your younger brother or sister.
Yeah.
But we always joke about it now, because I'm like, if you hadn't done that, Mark, I don't know if this book would exist. So you kind of have to like look at those things as creative inspirations, I guess.
So you've already kind of talked about Carlton Crumple, who's the main character of the book. But who are the other characters in the books, that we meet along the way that kind of, follow Carlton on his adventure?
Well, his best friend is Lulu, and she works with him at a fast food restaurant. I mean, I'll back up a little bit. After when he was a little kid, his brother scared him, so he believed monsters were real. So later, his dad wanted him to get a job, and he's only 11 years old, so he's working at a work program kind of thing. So he gets a job at Chubsy Cheeseburgers, and that's when he meets the Munchie Monsters. They come in, they eat the French fry that they find, and they want more fast food. So they're going to eat all the fast food in the world. And so Carlton Crumple's onto them. He's like, I know you're monsters. So he and his best friend Lulu jump on her scooter, and they chase them down the highway. They've already jumped into like a hippie van. As you know, you've read the book, but for those who haven't, and I won't give too much away, but they jump into a van and head down the highway looking for more fast food. And they go, Carlton and Lulu go and chase them with their two little animals, Poof Poof and Iggy, which is a poodle and an iguana. I love sidekick. I like the sidekick characters like Woodstock and all those from childhood. So I always wanted to have little animals in there.
And I think they work well the way you use them as kind of like interludes in in the story. Give them their own chance to, I guess, shine, and not. I mean, they're there during the other parts of the story, but they have their own chance to be their own characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's little vignettes in between the adventure, kind of cutaways, almost like a Ernie and Bert kind of vignettes. Big influence on me too. Bless me.
Are they based on any pets you had, or you knew that your friends had, or I don't know if that makes sense?
Well, my grandma had a little white poodle, and Poof Poof is a white poodle, but her poodle wasn't very nice. It was always growling and throwing its teeth at me. I just thought it was kind of a funny dog. I always thought poodles were funny. And then iguana, actually, when I was in San Francisco, one of my roommates, my friend Corey, had a pet iguana, and it was in a cage in the living room, and it got away. It actually escaped from the cage, and it was missing for a few days. And then I had this green corduroy coat, and I grabbed it, put it on to go outside, and I put my arm through the sleeve, and I just felt this like dry, like claw, like hand, like thing, like grab my hand, and I was like, I was like completely freaked out, and I dropped my coat, and out crawled the iguana, and and they're like, oh, we found whatever its name was. I don't think it was Iggy, but so I was like, we went on a little adventure. So it was probably inspired by Corey's lizard. So thanks, Corey.
And is manager Floops inspired by any previous bosses?
Yeah. He's kind of the he kind of represents a lot of bosses I had in retail, and I worked in some restaurants too in my early days. So he's kind of that like officious, very goes by the book, you know, has a power trip thing going, and Carlton's not too into working for him.
Now I noticed that, and this is I know that there's the next book coming up, but you created a pretty elaborate world of for Carlton to live in. Not that you can really see the book this well, but it's a great map in the back of the book of the where Carlton lives. That I love those little details. Is that kind of a roadmap for future stories?
Yeah, the map is actually in all three books, but it's changed. There's changes in each book. So what you'll see in the book 2, Tater Invaders, there's kind of the same layout, but then you'll see different things like underground. And I always made maps when I made pitch Bibles for cartoon shows. I always kind of had a map of the world. I always liked maps, like in the front of the Winnie the Pooh book, there was like the map that showed where everything was. And I think we actually used to draw maps too, or something. Like we're kind of like, oh, this is where my fort's going to be, and this is, when we were kids. I was in a fort club with my brother and my friend, 2 other friends, and we would build forts and underground forts and go on, crazy adventures on our bikes up into the hills, and swim in rivers, and there was, hippies running around everywhere, and it was kind of a crazy time. Didn't really know what play dates were. It was just like when the street lights come on, But yeah, so there was a lot. I liked a lot of we had a lot of different locations that we would go to. We would discover things, like there's an old barge out by the gravel pits, you can jump off of into water and things like that. So we had a lot of places to go. So I thought it would be cool for in Carlton's world that there's a lot of different places to go, abandoned mines and mountains, underwater things. And I imagine it is, it keeps getting more elaborate as each book goes on. Sort of like the mythology of things that exist here, and then there's things that overlap, monsters from here, and then you might see them over in another part.
Now I know one of my son's other favorite parts is the Chubby's Cheeseburger Land, which he always likes to point out the train.
Oh, that's cool.
And the roller coaster.
That's awesome. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, I just thought it was funny if there was I'm sure there are. I mean, I can't think of any, but a whole amusement park basically just built off of like a fast food chain, that they have their own theme park. I mean, it's like Legoland has one that's built off of a toy. But I thought it would be funny just to have everything is just based on hamburgers and French fries and
they've sold more burgers than a certain other fast food joint. I noticed in the
yeah, I think I don't know how many billions and billions. What did it say?
Gazillions, 1.5 gazillion, I believe.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I had to remember.
So, but how long does it from start to finish did it take you to complete the book? I mean, from laying it out to doing the artwork and stuff like that.
Well, the first book I actually drew out this is actually not the first book. This is the third book, but I actually drew the whole thing out in storyboard, in a whole comic. So I actually made the whole script and everything at the same time. But so I sketched the whole thing out like that. With the second book, I actually, the second and third book, I wrote a script first. So I had kind of like a working script that I worked off of, and then I started sketching the whole thing out. And I traditionally draw. I mean, I traditionally created on, with paper and pens and pencils, and scan it into a computer. And then I send it over to my friend Jimbo Madison, who's doing all the color on it. He's a friend that I worked with at Colossal Pictures. And he's also a director, and he does a lot of things. So I just got him to do the color on this, and he's like, I'll totally do it, because he's really good at it. So I scan it and I send it off. I send them off to him, and then he colors them and sends it back to me, and then we show it to the editor and kind of go like that. But back to your original question, it depends. I have about a month to ink the entire book, which my deadline is approaching quite soon. So I'm trying to schedule it out where I'm like, if I can ink 6 pages a day, or kind of figure out some kind of schedule like that, to get to it's all sketched out. That's all done. And basically what has to be done now is the inking and the coloring. So and the word balloons actually are done separately. Our layout guy Sammy does that, and I draw them, and I draw the word balloons and I send. So it's all kind of done in piecemeal fashion. Where I used to do comics, everything is just done together, like the word balloons and inking and all that. But we do it separately. So if it's translated into other languages, you can kind of manipulate the word balloons and drop them back in, take them out within the files. So
okay.
But
now, go ahead.
Oh, so I'm trying to think like how long an actual like entire book takes. I mean, from the beginning, I start jotting down ideas and sketches, and then start writing it out, and then bring it to the inking, after the sketching, the inking stage and all that. So I guess like a few months. I mean, I haven't really fully tracked it, but if I looked at it, it's probably like 2 or 3 months for beginning to end, maybe even 4 months.
So when you were creating the characters, did you have like, maybe, let me rephrase that. If this were to be like a cartoon, who could you see voicing your characters? I don't know if you've given that any thought. Because when I'm reading it to my son, I read like the panels where it's just like the word boxes where it's just kind of like telling what's going on in the scene. I kind of imagine that being read like the announcer in the Super Friends cartoon.
Oh, the announcer idea sort of came about from the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons, because they'd have this Rocky and Bullwinkle, and now it's very like a takeoff on an older kind of a radio show kind of a voice. So I kind of based it on that. That's the voice that I hear in my head. There's a little bit of sarcasm in the narration, and there's in the first book there's a lot more narration than there is in the second one. It's just kind of part of the the humor. But as far as like Carlton Crumple, I was kind of like imagining that. I'm like, I don't know. There's some funny actors and stuff, but I'm not quite sure like who would do them. I mean, I've done voices for like in my DreamWorks TV cartoon Public Pool, and then my friends do voices, and so I mean, sometimes I think of a celebrity, but then other times I'm like, because I have friends that are voiceover actors, and they're not celebrities, and they're great, so it's like sometimes I wish movies and stuff would use a little bit more of the unknown ones too, because they're just great. I mean,
No, I was just kind of curious as if you had given that any thought, because
Yeah,
the it really reads like it could be animated series also.
yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's part of the idea of the book series. It's kind of it's sort of part of the model of Pixel and Ink is cross platforms.
Hmm.
So I mean, we haven't done,
Yeah.
we're just making the books now, but that is part of the plan idea. So uh, when we cast for Kung Fu Spy Troll, that was pretty interesting because there was a lot of celebrities that came in that read for Kung Fu Spy Troll. Like Mark Hamill came in, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Even the guy who played Jar Jar, Ahmet Best,
Hmm.
he read for it, and like Corey Feldman, all these people came in, and I really was gravitating toward this guy who wasn't a celebrity. He was like a comedian. He played guitar. I'm trying to even think what his name was, like Adam Lawson or something. I can't remember, but he was really funny. He's kind of like a Jack Black type, and I was like,
Oh,
this is the guy, man. He just
yeah.
like, I don't know. It just, you could lean to, oh, well, we're going to get this guy to do it because he was in Star, but in my head, it was like the best one was actually like an unknown guy.
Right.
But he didn't actually end up doing the role. We ended up going with another voice actor.
Yeah.
But
So
we did actually use we actually did use Tom Kenny from SpongeBob to do
mhm.
the sidekick of the troll. He was a snake, and Tom, he's just so good. He just nailed it. I was just like, I was just talking about like, well, you always use like the celebrity guy, but he really,
Yeah.
it's sort of like an unknown guy and then a known guy. But he was great. He was really funny.
So this is right at this time a 3-book series. I believe you kind of mentioned.
Yeah. So far, we're
Yeah.
it's contracted for 3, and the
Okay.
second one is called Tater Invaders, and the third one is called Reptoids from Space.
Oh. Okay.
So I get some aliens in there. So we've got sea, we've got land, and then we've got air.
Well, I'm sure Carlton will be able to handle it. And we'll I assume we'll probably see some development of his character as the series progresses.
Yeah, the second and third books are a little bit like the first one is very what do I say, like kind of over the top cartoony. The second one is a little bit more kind of action adventure-y. I guess I'm sort of looking at them and like the first one has a very almost like like an over the top wacky cartoony feel to it, and the other ones do too. But there's just more. It's I think the second and third one are a little bit more complex as far as the story go and what happens in the story, and the character. He definitely gets kind of, I say, like he gets ahead of his skis a little bit. So. And one of the things that I'd like to emphasize in the books is that he needs his friend, like he kind of needs the help of his friends. He doesn't do it by himself. So Lulu, his friend, helps out a lot. So there's always like an opportunities for them to sort of work as you do this, I do this, and we can solve this problem. So there's a lot of that going on in there, and they meet other characters too.
Yeah.
An old grizzled potato farmer.
Well, one of the other things in the book that I really enjoyed is your use of like the words like splurt and glorp, and when we're reading the part about when Fifi and Iggy are kind of doing their little side thing, my son always makes sure that I let him do the sounds.
Oh, that's cool.
And then as the final fight, gets ready to go, you have that whole page of Carlton and the Zinga Ringa Onion Ringa. that's always that I always get a chuckle out of that too. So
I like words. I guess I'm kind of a word freak, and just I like weird words. I like weird names for things. I like to come up with, I don't know, funny name. I did an internet cartoon called Glue back in the web series days, and it's still online. It's more kind of geared more for like teens and adults, but a lot of the names were like Scam and Flauta and things like that. So I've always liked naming characters, because sometimes it just like I'll look at him, I'm like, oh, that guy's definitely named Flauta, or that's silly name.
Yep. So where can I think we've covered a lot about the book, and again, it's a great book, and I highly recommend it. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the book before, as we kind of wrap up our interview?
What else would I like to say about it? I like to. I like writing it, and I'm hoping that it's little young kids do seem to enjoy it, so I'm having fun with that, and I guess the next thing I would like to say is just if you like Catch the Munchies, I'm sure you'll like Tater Invaders and Reptoids from Space too. These continuing series. I know I like to follow things and find out when the next episode or the next season's coming out of something. So hopefully that's fun for the kids too.
Yeah. And I also think this would be a great gift idea for parents who have kids and they want to get them show them what comics can be for their age. This is a perfect example, I believe.
Oh yeah, I agree. I teach before the pandemic. I was teaching cartooning classes to kids and showing them, before the book came out, showing them how to draw the Munchies and but then they would make their own comics. So that part of it is really great to, if it inspires kids, like when I was a little kid, inspires them to create stories and make comics. Then I feel like, well, my job is done, because I love, when kids make comics and they're just like very creative and making stories, and the monsters that they come up with.
Yeah.
Like what would they'll say? Like what would the friend of the Munchies look like? What does he eat? Where does he live? And one exercise I would do with them is making a cartoon character just out of an inanimate object. So I would have all these words on a table. I'm like, pick a word, and then, like if it's a soda pop can or if it's an apple or something, and then make a character out of it. That was really fun, because they would just like be so into it. And next week they're like, "Are we going to work on a comic? Are we going to work on a comic?" It's really fun to see. So hopefully the books will inspire reading and creating and drawing and storytelling.
And where can people find or order the book? And are you on social media where you like Twitter or anything, or Instagram, where people can follow your work?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm DA Fremont, and I post a lot of drawing. I'm drawing like Munchies and little previews of the books and characters and my studio stuff. Holiday House Books. I did a studio takeover thing, or a Instagram takeover thing, where I talked about the Munchies and made some videos. So yeah, DA Fremont on Instagram, and then there's a Facebook page, this Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher, that I just post only Carlton Crumples and book related stuff. So and then the book, is at Barnes and Noble and all the main ones. But oh gosh, what is the link? There's like that supports independent bookstores, and I'm completely blanking on on the name of it.
Well, how about I can if you want to find it and you can get it to me, and I'll be sure to include it in the show notes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I'll send you a link. Yeah, the name completely is escaping me, and it's something related to independent bookstores.
Yeah, and that's something I would like to include in the link also, because supporting independent stores like that is very important, especially now.
Right. No, I totally agree.
Well, I would like to thank you for your time. It was great talking to you, and maybe when book 2 comes out, we could get back together and talk about book 2.
No, yeah, definitely. Oh, I'd love to. I'm so glad your son is enjoying the book, and that makes me happy that when I see kids reading it or hear about that they're enjoying it, and that's really neat to hear.
All right. Well,
Thanks
like I said,
a lot.
you're welcome, and it was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll definitely catch up down the road.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Chad.
All right. Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and yeah, we'll be in touch. And we'll, if you want to, hang on for a little bit after I end, I'll give you my contact information, or you can send it to here.
There you go.
There, it's right there. Sure. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll let you go and get back to your inking, which you seem to be on a tight schedule with.
It's fun. It's a fun deadline, though. Definitely, it's so I'm very grateful that it's that kind of deadline. So
yeah. All right. Well, have a good evening.
You too, Chad. Thanks again, man.
Yep. Thanks.
Be well.